I'm Dayna J, Francois, and you're listening to Stirring the Plot. Whether you're gay, hot, or doing it for the plot, this is the podcast for you. We're here and we're queer, we're gay and we slay. And speaking of gay icon, I hope that those of you listening have heard of the novel The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by TJR, because it is, simply put, one of my all-time favorite novels. Honestly, it's a novel that I find myself rereading, but nothing can compare to the magic of reading it for the first time. After finishing the book for the first time, I thought to myself, you know what? Hell yeah. This right here, this is why I read, for the joy and privilege of coming across an exquisite story like this and being swept up in its magic. But don't be fooled, listeners. This episode isn't a deep dive into Evelyn Hugo's lore, although I think everyone should read her story at least once in their life. But no, this episode is just simply inspired by Evelyn's tell-all. I mean, this isn't a tell-all per se. No, I'm afraid you'll have to wait for the memoir. But you know that here on the pod, I can't help but love to share a story or two. Recently, I've been really leaning into my storyteller identity. So today is going to be an episode that really embodies my storytelling skills. I'm really going to be putting myself to the test. So I hope that you guys enjoy this, because in honor of it officially being Pride Month, and to kick off Pride Month, I am sharing 7 stories. Yes, you heard me right. 7 stories from 7 situationships, aka 7 more reasons why I'm in therapy. But let me remind you guys, this isn't a tell-all. You'll have to wait for the memoir if you want the full stories, but today you get 7 story times in one. This is a misadventures in dating on steroids, if you will. So with that, I give you The 7 Situationships of Dayna J. Francois. Also, disclaimer to you guys. As you know, if you've been listening to the pod for a while, I refer to people, this is just something that I've been doing for as long as I can remember, but I refer to people that I tell stories about for some form of anonymity, I guess. I refer to people by nicknames. You've heard some already, Taylor's version, that kind of thing. So I will be referring to these different characters in this storytime episode by nicknames. So I just wanted to give a disclaimer. Story 1, Boysenberry Boy. Okay, you guys, one thing about me, I'll always joke that I've lived multiple lives. I mean, I could be talking about something I did 6 weeks ago, 6 months ago, literally 6 years ago. And every time I'll tell you I don't even recognize the person I was back then. Which brings me to a very important disclaimer. I used to date men, unfortunately. And that brings us to our first story. So picture this. I'm 16, naive, a hopeless romantic yearning for someone to sweep me off my feet and away from my painfully complicated life. Enter Boysenberry Boy. Now, let me set the stage. It's January 2016, and I'm wandering the ASU campus, trying to find the Virginia G. Piper's writer's house. I'm lost. I'm clutching my phone like it's a compass. I'm spinning in literal circles because Google Maps decides to play games with me, right? And then, like the lead in a poorly written rom-com, I crash into someone. Binders go flying, papers go everywhere, hands brushing as we awkwardly pick up each other's stuff. I mean, you can practically hear the cheesy background music, right? And that is how I met Boysenberry Boy. I mean, I was convinced I'd met my soulmate. And I know, you're already screaming, Dayna, you were 16, calm down. Also, spoiler alert, you're fucking gay. Yes, correct on both counts, but in that moment, I was truly, truly convinced I had met my soulmate. Boysenberry Boy had this way about him. He was charming, older, just mysterious enough to make my teenage brain spin. He'd take me on late night adventures, driving me around like we were fugitives in some indie film. We'd go geocaching, drink coffee that tasted like burnt dreams, and share slices of boysenberry pie, which, fun fact, tasted like regret. But that's how he earned his nickname. And honestly, I wanted more. More adventures, more conversations, more of his attention. But wanting more, dangerous. Needing more, suicidal. And yet back then I think I would have risked it all just to keep him looking at me like I was something special. Now, hindsight is a petty little bitch, and looking back, the red flags were basically fluorescent. I was in high school, he was in college, he had one foot in a lecture hall, the other in someone else's dorm room, and there I was, just an emotionally messy pit stop. And honestly, I didn't even care, because the truth is I wasn't running to Boysenberry Boy. I was running away from everything else. See, here's what you need to know. My mom had recently passed away, and I was drowning in grief. I wasn't dealing with it, because how does a 16-year-old even begin to deal with that? So instead, I was doing anything I could do to feel something that wasn't numbness. And Boysenberry Boy was a convenient escape. Listeners, I lost my virginity to him. But hear me out. If I had stopped to process what was happening, maybe I would have realized that the ache I felt after being with him wasn't because of him. It wasn't the pie or the fact that my first time was in the backseat of a 2012 Chevrolet Sonic. No. The ache was the result of trying to fill an emotional void with something that wasn't meant to fit. The 16-year-old me didn't have that clarity. Instead, I panicked. I told myself I regretted it because of the car or the pie or because I had caught the ick. Anything but the truth. And as you guys know, the truth being, you are gay. So listeners, that brings me to story time number 2. Okay, picture this. Story time number 1 was point A. And now we're journeying to point B. And let me tell you, it wasn't a short trip. We're talking 2.5 years and over 5,000 miles. Some people take direct flights. I, apparently, take the scenic detours with questionable life decisions. So here's the setup. You know how when you travel overseas, you want to come back with the kind of stories that make people's jaws drop? Well, my trip to Europe handed me plenty of those. But one night in Amsterdam, whew, top 3 craziest nights of my entire life. Easily. Let me set the scene. It's the last night in the Netherlands before moving on to Germany. And my friends and I decide that we need to live it up one last time. Think locals only energy. So we're dressed to the nines, we're vibing, and we're ready to make some unforgettable memories. And we succeeded. Just not in the way that we planned. At some point in the night, we find ourselves standing outside a coffee shop. And no, I don't mean Starbucks. This was Amsterdam. So the kind of coffee shop I'm talking about is the one with the big neon sign and a menu that doesn't include pumpkin spice. So naturally, when in Amsterdam, right? Fast forward and we're high as a fucking kite, trying to navigate our way back to the hostel. We somehow stumble onto a bus, how I couldn't tell you. But here's the thing about the Amsterdam buses. The doors, fucking ruthless. If you're not fast, they'll shut on you like a bad breakup. And there were like 7 of us trying to get off the bus at the same stop, high off our fucking asses. 5 of them made it. Guess who didn't? That's right, me. Me and my friend. The doors slammed shut, the bus took off, leaving us panicked, laughing, and very much stranded. Now, if you've never been high and lost in a foreign country, let me paint you a picture. It's like being the star of your own horror movie, but the soundtrack of your uncontrollable laughter. And eventually, I think about 10-20 minutes of chaos later, the bus, it finally stops again. My friend and I jump off like our lives fucking depend on it, only to realize we have absolutely no idea where the fuck we are. So, cue the aimless wandering. At this point, it's past midnight. We're trapezing through the streets of Amsterdam, and it feels like we're in a scavenger hunt with no map. And after what felt like a lifetime, but was apparently only like 35 minutes or so, we finally stumble back to the hostel. Now, the hostel is buzzing because apparently sleep is optional when you're young and you're abroad, and my friend and I head toward my room. And that's when the night decides it's not done with me yet. As we're walking down the hall, there's 3 girls that step out of a nearby room. 2 of them are wheeling suitcases, clearly ready to check out, and I recognize them from the night before. They wave at me and I wave back, casual camaraderie. But it is the 3rd girl who absolutely stops me in my tracks. She's a brunette. She's stunning in the way that makes time stop just for a second. Our eyes lock, and I swear I forgot how to breathe for a moment. She glances at me, curiosity lighting up her expression, and then she does something unexpected. She stops us. Turns out she's got an early flight, went a little overboard at the coffee shop. She can't take anything with her because, fun fact, weed isn't legal once you leave the Netherlands, so she asks if we want to help her finish it off. Now, let me tell you, she could have asked me for just about anything in that moment. I probably would have said yes. But before I can even open my mouth, my friend jumps in like the mom friend of the century and politely declines. The brunette seems pretty chill about it, honestly. And she offers us the leftovers instead. But again, my friend shuts that down too. Something about an early train and stranger danger, which all valid points. But listen, I don't know who needs to hear this, but stranger danger rarely crosses your mind when you're wandering through Europe. Every stranger is just a potential new bestie. Or, a potential mistake you'll laugh about later. Semantics. So anyways, the brunette nods and she tells us to have a good night, and I wish the same for her. But let me tell you, as I was walking away, I just couldn't shake this feeling that this wasn't the last I would see of her. And that, dear listeners, is how a simple night out turned into the prologue of something so much bigger. So let me set the scene for you, okay? I enter my room. I'm a million miles away. My roommate is glad that I made it back safe, but she's wondering what's got my head in the clouds type shit. And I explain to her my little interaction in the hallway, that type of thing, and win in Europe, baby. Win in Europe. Fast forward, and I'm sitting in a dimly lit room of a hostel in Amsterdam with the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. Yeah, that's right, guys. I left my room. I walked back to hers. I knocked on the door, and I said, "Can I take you up on your offer?" And she stepped aside, and she let me in, and that is that. Literally, listen, listeners, I was stirring the plot before that was even my brand. Before I even knew what stirring the plot actually was, I was doing it. I literally invented stirring the plot, and that's on period. So anyways, like I was saying, I'm sitting in a dimly lit room of a hostel in Amsterdam with the most beautiful girl 18-year-old me had ever seen. So her voice, low and a little raspy, filled the space between us as she recounted stories that somehow felt like they'd been meant just for me. She leaned forward, elbows resting on her knees, and I swear, listeners, the way that her hair fell over her shoulder was straight out of a movie. This was my baby gay awakening wrapped in a European night to remember. She told me she was a lesbian, and while I tried to keep my best expression neutral, internally I was an absolute fucking mess. My heart was doing somersaults, my brain was screaming, "Girl, do something." And yet, all I could manage was a shaky, "Oh, cool." Like I wasn't 2 seconds away from combusting. This wasn't just a canon event. This was a whole ass cinematic universe crossover. Me and this girl, I realize I haven't even told you guys her nickname, Amster, emphasis on damn. I know it's long, but it just works. Me and her, we talk for hours about her growing up in the foster system, about me losing my mom and feeling adrift ever since. Somewhere between the laughter and the raw honesty, the world outside of that room completely disappeared, and it was just us. Two strangers who felt like they'd known each other forever, even though we were just a chance meeting in the middle of a chaotic city. And let me tell you, Amster, emphasis on damn, that girl is fine. Had a way of looking at me that made my skin feel too tight and my heart race like I'd just run a marathon. She had this slow smile, the kind that made you feel like you were the only person in the world she wanted to be talking to. Every word that she said just felt intentional. Every glance felt like a secret she was letting me in on. But here's the kicker. I was still figuring myself out. Sure, I knew I liked girls at that point, but I hadn't fully stepped into that part of myself yet. And yet there I was, sitting across from this stunning woman thinking, maybe this is what it feels like to be truly seen. The night blurred into the early hours of the morning, and before I knew it, she was leaning back against the wall, her voice softer now, her eyes searching mine, and all I could think was how badly I wanted to close the space between us. But here's the thing about being a baby gay. You overthink everything. Is this okay? Is she feeling the same thing? Is this a sign or just wishful thinking? Spoiler alert, it was definitely a sign. And here's the thing. When you're in Amsterdam with Amster emphasis, damn, that girl is fine, you learn that sometimes you gotta just stop thinking and just let yourself feel. I think what fascinated me the most about her wasn't just the way that she kissed me or the way that she looked at me like she uncovered something I didn't even know I was hiding. It was the way that she was a whole entire person. And I know what you're thinking, but she was just so much more than her queerness, so much more than her sexuality. And it sounds toxic, my mindset, like, Dayna, what the hell? And I'm right there with you. At that point in my life, that was my internalized homophobia speaking. My comp het still tugging at me, whispering, don't be too obvious, don't let them see you for just that. And yeah, I used to think that queerness was everything someone could be, that your identity became defined by one thing, and for me, that one thing wasn't something I could ever fully claim yet. So when I met Amster, emphasis on damn, that girl is fine, I allowed myself to see her beyond her identity, beyond that label, and something in me just shifted. It was like she wasn't just a living embodiment of the label I was still afraid to wear. She was a living, breathing universe of stories, of pain, of joy, of resilience. And when I allowed myself to look deeper than her queerness, I found that, God, it just, it felt like a weight lifting off my chest. And then she kissed me, and I know it was bound to happen, but you don't understand. This kiss wasn't just some casual peck or a fleeting moment in time. This kiss was everything, and the whole world disappeared, and suddenly there was no past, no future, no time. It wasn't like anything I had ever experienced before at that point. It felt like me, 18, lost and confused and searching to find myself, searching for my purpose, searching for my identity, searching for a reason to step into my authentic self. And yes, it took a long time coming, but still, this was the beginning. This was the catalyst. Suddenly, all the stars in the sky could have fallen right then, and I still wouldn't have compared to the way that my heart felt when it was slamming in my chest like it was trying to break free. And then naturally, we were more than kissing. Let me tell you guys, this is where the sapphic Carrie Bradshaw in me really comes out. Amster, emphasis on damn, that girl is fine, made me wonder if it was even possible to just fall in love with a stranger this intensely. She made me want to. She made me want to love so dangerously, so wildly, that I knew my heart would be left raw, exposed, possibly shattered, but in that moment, I didn't care. I wanted to live in that feeling. And when I tell you every second, every minute spent with her was like a conversation I couldn't pause, couldn't stop. Hours flew by like seconds. I'm not even going to try and pretend that the sex wasn't amazing, because it was. But the real intimacy, it came in the quiet moments. It came in the stolen glances, the soft laughter as we traded stories, the comfort in our shared vulnerabilities. When the morning light started creeping in through the windows, painting everything golden, I realized this wasn't just a one-night stand. Parting ways after that night felt, well, it felt surreal. But it wasn't your typical walk of shame. It was something different, because for the first time in my life, in all my 18 years, I didn't feel like I was losing something. It felt like I was finding something. I was finally finding myself in the most unexpected place. So thank you, Amster, emphasis, damn, that girl is fine. Thank you for showing me that it's possible to find pieces of yourself in people you've just met. And thank you, Amsterdam, for being the backdrop to a love story that wasn't about finding the one, but finding me. Sometimes the plot twists come when you least expect them. Whew, sorry. That story was way longer than I expected it to be. See, that's what happens when I talk about my experiences with girls versus my experience with guys. Anyways, in all seriousness, that experience in Amsterdam solidified my sexuality within myself. It would still take me some time to actually say it out loud to people closest to me, but I was well on my way. and that night in Amsterdam was the stepping stone I needed that altered the trajectory of my entire life. Okay guys, I need to lock in. I've only told 2 stories. I have 5 more to go. This isn't a tell-all, so the next few stories will be exactly that. Quick stories. There isn't a chronological order to these stories also. The first 2 just made sense to tell back to back. Okay, so now we're at story number 3. This one is short because this dude doesn't even qualify as like a situationship or anything like that, but I need to share this misadventures in dating mini-sode because it's laughable and it's insane. Story time number 3. Picture it. Tinder, 2022. I matched with a dude who, in hindsight, wasn't even worth the swipe, but in the spirit of serial dating, post-breakup chaos, which that was very much 2022 for me, 2021, 2022 for me. It was post-breakup chaos, so I was in this season of serial dating. For that reason, I entertained this guy. Let's call him the Ick. And trust me, he earned that nickname. At first glance, the Ick was hot, objectively speaking. The kind of guy who might make you do a double take, but immediately regret it once he opens his mouth. Constantly making everything sexual in the most cringe-inducing way possible. Why did I entertain him? I don't know. Maybe I was having a manic episode or something, but I did in fact agree to a date. A movie. Low interaction, low stakes. I told him I wanted to see Nope, a cinematic masterpiece, by the way, and he assured me he handled everything. Tickets, pickup, the whole shebang. Great, right? Wrong. Fast forward to the theater. I'm sitting there expecting Jordan Peele brilliance when suddenly some dry, boring ass film starts playing. I turn to him, confused. Are we in the wrong theater? I had asked him, and he said no. I double checked the tickets. No mistake. We were in the right place. After suffering through 90 minutes of cinematic blandness, we got back to the car, and I finally asked him why he'd chosen this movie when we had agreed to Nope. And listeners, brace yourself. This man said that he picked the wrong movie on purpose because he thought it would be funny. Yeah, funny. I mean, who even thinks like that? Like, why would that even be funny? Like, that's not funny. Like, I know that humor is subjective, but that's literally not funny. That's just fucking weird. And me, reactively said that he was a freak. And he followed it up with, you haven't even seen how much of a freak I can be yet. And not in a fun, playful way. No, this man meant it sexually. Gag. At that moment, I decided the Ick's time in my life was over. I blocked him faster than you can say absolutely not. And here's the kicker. A few months later, my roommate at the time had swiped on the apps and matched with him. She had no idea who he was, but when I told her, blocked, capital BLOCKED, and I swear we need a freak alert system for these apps, a PSA, if you will, for the masses. Let's all band together to save the next girl from a bad movie and an even worse date. Anyways, next story, because I think I need to cleanse my soul after reliving that. So listeners, it's time for story number 4, which is a bit of a throwback to when teenage me was deep in my messy era. Let me set the scene. 16-year-old me was grieving the loss of my mom, wrestling with the whirlwind of emotions and feeling completely untethered. I was confused about my feelings, my identity, and what any of it all meant. And instead of facing the confusion, I threw myself into making questionable decision after questionable decision. And one of those decisions was Boysenberry Boy, as I previously mentioned. He was my high school quote-unquote soulmate, or so I thought. When we were together, I convinced myself that everything would make sense, so I made the choice to be with him in a way I hadn't with anyone else. Instead of clarity, all I felt was emptiness and discomfort. It wasn't just awkward, it was just so deeply wrong for me. Though I didn't understand why at that time, 16-year-old me didn't stop to reflect on that discomfort. No, instead, baby gay trapped in the closet, panicked. In my mind, the problem wasn't the act itself, it had been the person. Obviously, the answer was finding the right guy, right? Honestly, listeners, my heart, it absolutely breaks for younger me, because what a delusional little bitch. There were padlocks on that closet, my God. Anyway, that's where the page turner comes in. So I had met the page turner through Boysenberry Boys college friends. He was quirky, he was intellectual, and the kind of person who could talk for hours about books and why Hollywood needed to stop ruining classics with poorly written remakes, adaptations. He mentioned once that he worked at a bookstore in town, which had stuck in my mind, so found myself standing outside that very bookstore. I wish I could say I walked away from this moment, but I did not. I was convinced that this would somehow fix everything I was feeling. And while I won't get into specifics, let's just say that night didn't give me the clarity I was looking for. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I fucked the page turner. But here's the funny part. Years later, during the pandemic, the page turner and I reconnected. Strictly as friends. It turns out we were both figuring things out back then, and he's just as gay as I am now. And we laughed about how far we've both come, and honestly, it was a nice moment of closure. Anyways, that's enough nostalgia. On to story number 5. This one isn't so much a story as it is just like a hilarious situation I feel compelled to share. I think this was circa 2023 maybe. I went out with this girl, we'll call her, where were you January 6th? You know the type. She just had that vibe. I have no idea why I went out with her when she radiated that energy, but don't worry, I unpacked it in therapy. At the time, I had a roster. Yes, listeners, I had 7 girls on rotation, and I know what you're thinking. Wow, Dayna giving full-on sapphic fuckboy energy. And okay, fair, but don't let that fool you. I'm not built for the roster life. It's exhausting. Anyways, back to where were you January 6th. We went on 3 dates, and while it was fine, I quickly realized we didn't have much in common. Our first date was cute. It was a bookstore, coffee. Second date, I think we hit up an antique shop, grabbed lunch, and the third date was a movie night where she cooked me dinner. She was giving U-Haul on the second date energy, but the connection just wasn't there for me. Don't get me wrong, I mean, she was nice enough. I mean, we bonded over books, but even that was a stretch. She was all about fantasy and spiritual, witchy literature, while I'm a psychological thriller meets queer contemporary romance kind of girl. She found reality TV to be beneath her, while I live for the chaos of it and my sense of humor, dry, sarcastic, and unapologetic, and she didn't know if I was joking or serious half the time. But here's the kicker, listeners. The thing that truly unraveled this situationship. Studio Ghibli. I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't fucking know. But the anime. So one night, I casually mentioned that the only Studio Ghibli film I had ever seen was Ponyo. Apparently, that was the equivalent of slapping her grandmother in the face and declaring war on her entire personality. She went from come to Europe with my family this summer to I feel personally offended by your response. I mean, was it the anime? Is this a deal breaker? Should I add only seen Ponyo to my Hinge red flags? But it didn't stop there. I told her I would be open to watching one of those films with her, you know, compromise. But instead of appreciating the olive branch, she told me I had horrendous tastes and that my love for reality TV had destroyed all of my brain cells. Yeah, I very quickly broke things off, and honestly, I wasn't even mad. I was just entertained. I mean, imagine breaking up with someone over anime. I don't know. Honestly, I hope she's out there thriving, surrounded by whimsical forest creatures, spirits, and enchanted castles, or whatever the fuck. So listen, listeners, tell me, was this a red flag? Let me know in the non-existent comments below, or just sit back and laugh with me at the absurdity of all of it. On to story number 6. Story number 6 feels like a fever dream. One of those tales you look back and think, did that actually fucking happen, or did I just hallucinate my way through 2021? Spoiler alert, it did in fact happen. And if I'm being real, it's probably one of my more embarrassing misadventures in dating, which says a lot because, well, I mean, look at the material. So let's rewind. Pandemic lockdown was ending-ish. People were emerging into society like freshly thawed caveman, you know? And I met met the scientist. It was March or April, maybe. She was the type of girl who could ruin your life with a whisper, and she spoke French, so the stakes were high from the jump. She went to ASU, and at that time, I was still at PC taking classes online. I lived in Verrado, basically the middle of nowhere, Arizona at that time, for those who are unfamiliar to the valley. So between our busy lives, she had finals and a whole ass lab to run. We became infatuated through thrift dates, childhood confessions, and late night texts that made my heart feel like it was taking steroids. But timing is cruel, isn't it? Too many what ifs and almost turned our little situationship into a footnote rather than a love story. Simply put, it fizzled. And I hate the right person, wrong time narrative because it feels lazy, but sometimes timing does have hands. Anyways, fast forward exactly 1 year later. 365 days, and wouldn't you know it, the universe hits Control Z on us. This time we're both in the same city, we're both older, wiser, and emotionally healthier, or so I thought. And so we start dating again, I guess for real this time. We're exploring the city like we were on borrowed time, which, spoiler alert, we were. I was deep in it, taking every day, making plans, falling for her harder than I care to admit. Then came the kicker. She was as sappically disastrous as a story can be, moving across the country for grad school. And listen, this wasn't my first time being in this situation. I mean, if I had a penny for every time a girl I dated decided to uproot her life and move away for school, I'd have 2 pennies, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? Yeah, that was a meme reference. Anyways, so here's where it gets wild. The scientist casually suggested that I move with her. U-Haul lesbians assemble. And here's the gag. I actually considered it, I mean briefly, molded over for a fleeting moment before snapping back to reality. But don't get too attached to this story, listeners, because just as I was daydreaming about maybe possibly building a life with her, she shattered it. Not only did she cheat, but she then proceeds to tell me about it like we were girlfriends. No, girl space friends, gossiping over mimosas instead of an actual couple. Imagine this, we're lying in bed post hookup and she starts giggling and telling me all about this other girl she's been seeing. And I sat there like, are like we role playing, or have I officially lost my goddamn mind? And it wasn't just the cheating, so to speak. I mean, for those of you who know me, know my lore, know my history, cheating is like an absolute like cheating in of itself is just like a horrible thing, but like it's also just rooted back to like childhood trauma for me. But so anyways, it wasn't just the cheating, it was the fucking audacity. I mean, the sheer nerve of her to talk to me about it like I wasn't the one she had been exclusively dating 7-8 months at that point, and not to mention the year before when we were dating also for I think probably like 4 or 5 months. So like collectively both of those times that we dated, that was quite a bit of time, you know? So when I tell you that I flipped my shit, I mean I flipped my ever-loving mind. She left my house mid-argument, but not before hitting me with the "I'm so sorry, I don't know what I'm doing" monologue. Girl, neither do I. Literally neither do I. But I knew one thing for sure, I was fucking done. Cue the theatrics. She spent days, weeks blowing up my phone with apologies, driving to my house uninvited, leaving long-winded voicemails about how she was falling in love with me and self-sabotaging. And sure, I cried the first night. Shout out to my roommate at the time for holding me down. But after that, I was just grossed out, honestly. Here's the thing about cheating. It's not just the betrayal. It's the ick that lingers. And for me, that hit deeper. That hit on a deeper level because of the childhood trauma that I'm still unpacking. But that's a story for another day, or the memoir, like I mentioned. Anyways, the icing on the cake with the scientist is that she had the audacity to invite me to her birthday dinner after all of this. Like, are you coming to celebrate me with all of my friends who are dying to meet you? Baby girl, absolutely fucking not. I'm not coming to your birthday party, the fuck? And while we're at it, lose my fucking number. People tell me that I'm dramatic for saying all girls I had previously dated are weird, but come the fuck on. If you've heard any of my other stories, the softball player, the stand-up comedian, etc., you know I'm not fucking lying. Anyway, the scientist and I have not spoken. Like, genuinely, we have not spoken at all. But recently I did notice that she started watching my Instagram stories again, which I think is hilarious. Rent free, babe. Almost unforgettable. Almost. But you know what wasn't unforgettable? Story time number 7. This story, just shits, no giggles. Let me elaborate. I'm gonna set the scene for you. A fleeting chapter in the post Taylor's version era. Pre-Insta Wife era, which I promise you guys are more stories. I mean, you know all about Taylor's version. Insta Wife deserves her own episode because holy fuck. But anyway, somewhere in the chaotic intersection of trying to heal and what the hell am I doing, enter Genovia, known affectionately to my friends as Just Shits, No Giggles. A title she earned, well, you'll see why. At first glance, she seemed quirky in a way that could almost be endearing. You know the type, someone who maybe doesn't read social cues perfectly but has an awkward charm. I chalked it up to a little ADHD, maybe the touch of the tism, whatever. We all have our quirks. I thought, okay, she's just a little different. Maybe that's cute. And then things got strange. Our first date ended with her saying, okay, I love you, bye. Excuse me? You love me? No, we are not doing that. This is not some Taylor Swift music video. And then she got COVID, which meant we didn't see each other for a while after that, but she kept FaceTiming me, and every time we hung up, there it was again. Okay, I love you, bye. At this point, I started actively asking her to stop. Like, please, for the love of everything, holy, can you not say that? Spoiler alert, she didn't stop. And the thing about Genovia is that she was chaos personified. Conversations with her felt like trying to follow a butterfly on meth when my brain was doing backflips trying to keep up. But she was off to the races, leaving me behind in a cloud of nonsensical tangents. Picture this. We'd be mid-conversation and she'd suddenly whip around and hit me with some out-of-pocket bizarre statement like the most normal thing in the world. No filter, no context, just pure unbridled Genovia energy. But we're just getting started. There's quirky and then there's whatever the fuck Genovia was. At first, I tried to brush it off as she was just a little eccentric, a little awkward, but harmless. I can handle quirks. I have quirks. But there's a line, and let me tell you, Genovia sprinted right past it and kept fucking going. So here's the thing about me. I value manners like my life depends on it. Potty humor, not the biggest fan. I just don't find it funny. Bodily functions, not always down to talk about it. Thank you very much. And yet every conversation with Genovia, with her, somehow spiraled into a TED talk on shit. No, literal shit. Her job as this like patient care technician meant she dealt with a lot of, well, very unsavory things. Bedpans, sponge bath, you name it. Which, hey, props to her for doing the important work. But every time she talked about her job, she managed to bring it back to shit. I'd try to redirect the conversation gently, hinting, maybe we don't need to talk about that, but no. It was like her personal mission to turn every chat into gastrointestinal adventures. And guys, listeners, I think, I get it. Maybe you're thinking, Dayna, you're being a little bit shallow, you're being judgmental. But no, I gave her so many chances and I just thought, you know what? Let's go out again. Let's see if the vibes improve. Big mistake. Because then she sent me a TikTok, not just any TikTok, but a feelings confession TikTok. You know the ones, a sappy little video with text overlay like, when you're catching feelings for someone, hard eyes. We had literally been on one date at that point. One. So yeah, I was low-key scared, but it didn't stop there. A few days later, she texted me this gem. So I've been thinking about applying to PA school in LA. I hate LA so much, but it's closer to you, so that'd be good for us. What? Like, excuse me? Good for us? The us that doesn't even exists? She had already been accepted to a program in New York, a city she loved. Moving to New York City had been her plan all along, but now after one date, she was considering uprooting her life for a school in a city she hated just to be closer to me? Question mark, question mark, question mark. And then she asked, what are your thoughts? My thoughts? Oh, you mean besides absolutely fucking not? Like, I tried to be diplomatic. I think you should go wherever you feel happiest, I said, hoping that she would take the hint. Where would you want to live if you could live anywhere? That type of shit. But deep down, all I could think was, babe, please move to New York immediately. There's weird, and then there's just fucking unhinged, and Genovia lived in the latter, rent fucking free. I thought I'd reached my limit when she sent me that TikTok confessing feelings after one date, or when she floated the idea of applying to PA school in a city she hates just to be closer to me. But no, Genovia said hold my beer, because she was not done. We had plans to go to Zoo Lights. I was already strategizing how to tell her that not only could I not go, but also respectfully we can never see each other again. That's when she upped the ante. She sent me a picture, no text, no context, just a random dog taking a shit. I stared at my phone, blinking in absolute disbelief. What in the actual fuck? I texted back, what would possess you to send me a picture like that? Her reply, I just wanted to share my day with you. Like, girl, what? Not even her own dog, just a random dog she saw in the wild taking a dump, took a picture and thought, yeah, this is exactly what Dayna needs in her life right now. Like, what the fuck? I told her straight up, don't ever do that again. I was clear, but apparently clarity was not her strong suit, because the next morning she hit me with the sequel. Same situation, no good morning, no text, just another photo, but this time of her dog mid-business. At that point, I was done. I mean, I was way past done. I had been done, but I was in a new stratosphere of get me the fuck out of here. I couldn't even muster a response. I mean, I was creeped out. I was grossed out. I was thoroughly over it. All her bullshit. All I knew was that I could never, ever, 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 ever see her again, speak to her again. So Zoo Lights canceled. Genovia blocked. My peace restored. Yeah, how are we feeling, listeners? Yeah, same. That's all she wrote. No, literally, I've been talking for way too fucking long. 7 story times, 7 situationships, 7 times Dayna stirred the plot. Those are the 7 situationships of Dayna J. Francois. There are many more, because you know, or maybe you're just coming to learn, I am a situationship survivor, but I'm being really brave about it. This episode was just a little peek inside what my memoir that I will someday write will be about, so stay tuned for that, I guess. God, reliving those moments was honestly mortifying, and because I've just completely overshared, I think it's time to wrap this up. If you're enjoying my podcast, don't forget to rate it 5 stars, because it not only lets me know that you enjoy listening, but it also helps my podcast get boosted so that I can reach a wider audience. Follow at Stirring the Plot Pod on all social media platforms to stay up to date and never miss an episode. If you'd like to connect with me, I am just at Dayna J. Francois on all social media platforms. I will have everything linked in the show notes. And with that being said, if you like listening, make sure that you subscribe to my podcast and tune in weekly. Because I'm gay, I'm hot, and if there's one thing about me, I'm gonna stir the plot.